Reference class forecasting is a really challenging yet very interesting and valuable intervention that can be applied to budgeting, to allocating budget, and to planning the right resources for change management. Now, this is a slippery topic, but we're gonna make sure to dissect it in such a way that it's snackable and that it's actionable. Okay, so the challenge between navigating the right change budgets and underscoping or overscoping is quite a tough one, because what we see when you zoom out and look at change management projects is that cost overruns are almost inevitable. In each big project, there's almost always a cost overrun. I'm not sure if you remember the case of Brandenburg Airport in Germany, who went multiple billions over the original cost multiple times. And the reason that this is a very systematic error, that this doesn't just happen to rookies or beginners, but also to top-level planners and even fiscal analysts, is that it's rooted in cognitive biases. It's rooted in these mental errors like the planning fallacy, over-optimism, and the anchoring bias. And we will explain these biases in more depth in another video. But for now, we will move on with the reference class forecast. So all these biases, they work together and they lead to very overly optimistic forecasts. We can do it within an X amount of months, which is way too short. Or, oh, we only need an X amount of budget, which is usually way too little. Now, of course, biases are not the only thing to blame here, but they play a crucial part. And for the psychological angle, it's critical to understand. So the problem when you put all these biases together and give it in an explainable terminology, it is called the inside view. And the inside view, when you're working on a change management project, is almost inevitable. You're emotionally invested, you're definitely professionally invested, and you see this project as very unique with its own qualities. This time it's different, and we need to look at this from the inside to make sure we get everything right. Now, of course, this has its benefits, but it's also warping your perception of what budget is needed and how much time is needed. And this inside view in the literature, in the scientific literature, is almost always one of the big causes of budget overruns and potential setbacks in change processes. Now, how can we do something about this? This is where the intervention reference class forecasting becomes interesting. It was first coined by Dan Lavallo and Daniel Kahneman, famous psychologists, back in the 90s. And they were actually looking at a way in which we can get over this systematic error that even top-level planners make. And they were arguing for what is called the outside view, which is the opposite of the inside view. This is where you look at a project not from all the details, but from the outside. What are similar projects? What is historical data of projects we worked on before? And make that comparison. Now, for our brain, this is very counterintuitive because we're in the here, we're in the now, we're invested in this project. This is quite special. We're naturally drawn to the inside view, and we have to almost force the outside view to create the circumstance for the outside view to occur. So reference class forecasting is a very good tool to do this. And when you have it down, it can be quite easy and it can save you a lot of time and also a lot of money when we talk about budget allocations. So a fun fact before we dive in the UK, the government actually mandated reference class forecasting for projects that are over 40 million pounds. And they've managed to reduce cost overruns from 38% to 5% of the time. So that is crazy when we talk about the effectiveness of a behavioral, a psychological intervention. So I would say take after the UK here. Let's go through this. So there are actually multiple steps in the reference class forecasting process. Since this is only a short video, I'm going to keep it to the first 3 steps. That will already be a huge help. And in a later video, we can always dive into the mechanics, the depth, and also the mathematics of this. But for now, let's start with a simplified version. You have to choose your reference class. So you pick a reference class of similar projects. You have to analyze that reference class. You see how these projects were performing in the past, what went wrong, what went well. You look at the averages. And based on that, you make an initial estimate. So let's walk through this with an example. So imagine you're launching a new enterprise software system throughout your organization. With the project group and the strategic planner issue, estimate about $1 million in total cost, and you expect it to be done in about 10 months. You understand that you have to apply reference class forecasting to this because it's about quite a lot of money. So you are going to roll it out step by step. First, you build your reference class. So you look at similar projects in the past. So software project, if you can find them, enterprise, even better. Maybe there was an HR system that was being rolled out. Maybe the Salesforce was completely updated in terms of technology. You collect all these projects and look at their details. Make sure they're comparable in scale, in complexity, in type, in size. And the larger your reference class is, the more reliable your data will be. So now you have two things. You have your inside view. You know this project. You have advocated for this software change. But you also have the outside view. This is how it was done in the past. This is what the numbers look like. So this is intuition versus analytics. And they're both useful, but now we lean on the analytical side a bit more. So you're going to examine your reference class now. You look at how they performed. How did they overrun in budget? Were they adherent to their schedule? Were these overruns consistent? And did they typically all run over schedule? Or maybe they were even done before the estimated amount of time? Maybe it's a positive reference class. And what you see in this example, you collected all these projects, you see that the average cost was about 1.5 million. That's 50% higher than our initial estimate. And you see that the average time the average time of completion of all these projects that you gathered in your reference class, these past projects, it's about 12 months, which is also quite a bit more. So the third step, and this is quite easy, is you adjust your initial estimate. Now, you don't have to blindly take after the reference class that you put together, but it's wise to make it serve as somewhat of a correction. So you could say that you go somewhere in the middle, that you say, well, the new estimate, and you tell this to your strategic planning team, we did a reference class forecast, just like the UK government does. And what we found is that we should estimate it at about 1.3 million in an 11-month timeline. Well, this is a significant shift from what you first come up with. And it can save, again, if you spot this before you dive into it, it can save you a lot of time in cost overruns and budget adherence, schedule adherence. So I would say get started with this reference class forecast, try it out. You can start lean with a reference class of about 5 to 10 projects that are similar to the one that you're planning now, that you're scoping out. You make sure that you observe patterns in here, observe how they impact the overruns. And remember that this is also something that when you do it for the first time, it's probably not going to come out perfect. But when you practice it, you notice that it can become a handy and maybe even intuitive tool in how you plan and in how you mitigate risks when it comes down to scoping out change management projects and allocating budget for them. Now, if you want to learn more about reference class forecasting, I would highly recommend you dive into the Scholar and PubMed databases, because as I said, the full reference class tool is actually a bit more complicated and can get you even closer budgets. But that will be a topic for another video, and this will be a really good start to get you going. Okay, I will see you next time. Thank you.